All right, thank you everyone so much for coming. I'm so excited that you could be here and join us for the Alabama Archaeology Society Southwest Chapter meeting and talk. And tonight I'm going to introduce David Johnson. He is the author of the Handbook of America's Prehistoric Indians and Artifacts, and you can get your copy, and I think he'll sign it for you. In November of 2009, he found a prehistoric site on his property. In attempting to learn more about the artifacts he was finding, he discovered that the only information readily available to the public was in the form of placing a monetary value on the items as opposed to an historic value. Working with members of the Alabama Archaeological Society, a group of professional archaeologists, avocationals, and collectors, the handbook was developed to provide information regarding prehistoric Indian artifacts to the public in such a manner as to educate the public not only about the artifacts, but the importance in filling in the pieces of the puzzle that make up Alabama's prehistory. David and his wife, April, are now retired and spend most of their time working on archaeological projects around the state, along with sponsoring field trips for school-age children and encouraging the public to learn more about the benefits of preserving our past. And we are thankful for him tonight, coming all the way from Monroeville to give a talk. So thank you, David.
Okay. I'm just a plain old country boy. I'm just as country as I sound. My youngest sister said that the title Artifacts for Dummies was from my oldest sister. So anyway, yeah, half the audience is my family. But Artifacts for Dummies, because the archaeologists I work with don't necessarily like me calling the book this, but that's kind of what I call it to people, because that's what I was when I started. I didn't know anything. I didn't know how to find out anything. And so this presentation is going to kind of be on the genesis of, how the book came about. That goes the other way. All right, I am from Monroe County, born and raised. Those of y'all from around here, it's not too far away. I love the outdoors. My dad, instilled in me my desire to go outside and run around naked and, do all those things that country boys do. And so I had a friend of mine in high school that he owned his family owned some land. And so I hunted on it. And over the years, I acquired the leases to some other pieces of property close to it. And in 2009, we bought, maybe that didn't work. We bought this piece of property right here. All right, I'd hunted on it all these years. I knew places that I wanted roads, that I wanted food plots. So I had a dozer come in and we cleared out several places. Veterans Day 2009, I was on my tractor, on my dad's tractor, and disking up the food plot, and I turned up this big rock. Well, I didn't want to tear the disc up, so I jumped down off the tractor, got the rock to throw it out of the food plot, and noticed that it was concave on both sides. I realized it was a grindstone. Now, I've never found anything like that before in my life. Well, whenever I realized what it was, there were points in pottery all over the ground everywhere. You see all the orange flags? That it was just stuff everywhere. And so I realized that it was significant to me. And so every time it rained, again, there was just more stuff that came up everywhere. And we could go out there, and there were some days I may pick up 3 dozen different pieces just off of this one site. And so I wanted to know about what I was finding. What's it called, how old it was. I got to looking around. This is the only thing I could find. Well, you can see, or you can't see really, but everything circled here, that is a dollar figure represented for that artifact. All right, so yes, maybe this book showed me how I can identify a point type to a certain extent and get a name for it. But that's what it gave me, was a dollar figure. That's not what I was interested in. Well, I got to thinking about it. I work for the Alabama Department of Transportation. All these construction projects we have, the one y'all are doing down the Mobile River Bridge, I knew Bill Turner, our archaeologist for the Department of Transportation. I worked with him on several jobs. It took me up to the end to think about, well, let me contact Bill. And of course, y'all get the joke at the sign, right? End road work, support road work. She doesn't understand that the end road work doesn't mean that's the end of the job. Anyway, I got it with Bill, and Bill put me in contact with several members of the Alabama Archaeological Society. This is the Southwest chapter. If you're not a member of the state society, I can't say enough about joining the state society and all the benefits you get from that. But get in contact with them. What happened is they started steering me in a direction of trying to document and record the things that I was finding. Because it's great if I knew where everything was found, but if something happened to me, all that information was lost. And if you see where I've got that circled, I started trying to type the points, and both of those are typed as Marl Mountain. That is totally incorrect. I didn't know that at the time, but that's what I was trying to do. And so I've numbered all my points. I've got this really neat spreadsheet that I did up that I can actually go through, and I can sort by sites, by name, by types of material, to actually pull data out from all the artifacts I've collected, that if you come to our property and we go up to a site, I can tell you the story of that site based on the artifacts that came through there. So as I was, and Stephen Meredith, I can't say enough about him. He messed up and gave me his cell phone number. And he said, if you find something, take a picture, send it to me, give me a call. Well, every 5 minutes, is this a Clovis point? Is this a Clovis point? Is this a Clovis point? And Stephen, would bear with me. I'd take the picture and he'd say, hey, you can find information that in this, or you can find information about that in this, or you can find information about that in this. And so I started getting all these papers and things, and I finally felt bad about calling Stephen and Teresa Paglione and Ashley Dumas and wearing Bill Turner out every time I was in Montgomery, and coming down here and seeing Phil or Bonnie. And so I asked Stephen one day, I said, is there not some place where you can go that you can find all of this information? A one-stop shop. Well, Stephen pointed me to this. And now this is a great book. And it has been the Bible as far as point types go in Alabama for the last 60 years. But here was the problem I had with it. Number one, it was 60 years old. And so there was a lot of outdated information in it. And number two, this was written more as an archaeological document. Help me out here, Greg. It told you about a point. It gave you the measurements. It gave you all this technical criteria, which is great and what's necessary. But as far as what I was looking for at the time, I wanted the history, how old it was, the different things surrounding it. And it wasn't written in a manner where a dummy could understand it to get all that information. And so that's kind of how we came to the point of putting together the book, Alabama's Prehistoric Indians and Artifacts. Now, we decided this book is meant to be a living document. Does anybody understand what that means? Yeah. So Cameron and Hulse went through several editions, but there hasn't been one in 60 years. And so all that information, that had been discovered since then was not built on. And so we decided that we were going to make this as a living document. that we would come out with new additions as different, information became available. Another thing that we decided to do is we wanted to promote the Alabama Archaeological Society and what it was doing and the benefits that it provides. Now, the proceeds from the book actually go to the Alabama Archaeological Society. And so all the money that we make off of the book pays for carbon-14 dates, funds XRF studies, it pays for things with students writing papers. The Junior Archaeology Day we're talking about, we funded that at the Florence Indian Mound Museum. So all the proceeds actually go back into archaeological research here in the state. Now, this is the information that's in the book, and there's a lot. Whenever Stephen first tried to get rid of me by telling me to do this, he didn't realize that I'm stubborn enough and pig-headed enough that I decided I was going to do it. And I was thinking, hey, 50 pages, a couple of pictures. Well, 4 years and 500 pages later, this is what came out. And the information in the book is very shallow. It is a very broad subject with just enough information to let you know something. Because you can't include everything. But this is the type of information that I was looking for whenever I first started getting into this. And so, again, we tried to support the Alabama Archaeological Society. We also tried to make sure that if anybody in the state picked this up, no matter where they were, that they would see something that would be familiar to them. And so if you were in Dale County, we may not have an artifact right now represented from Dale County, but there's stuff from Houston Henry Pike. So you're going to see the lithic materials they have, the style points that they have, the styles of pottery they have from that area. And just as these Native American peoples did not observe our arbitrary state lines, political boundaries, if you're in Florida, in the Panhandle, it's going to look like what you see there. If you're there on the east side of Alabama, in Georgia, it's going to be the same thing. Now, a lot of the stuff that I had questions about, people had questions about, is number one, whenever I started, if I hadn't had Bill Turner, I would have been lost. So we tried to give a place in here that people could have places of contact, people to reach out to. Also, myths concerning archaeology and archaeologists and the law. Hey, somebody's fixing to come take my stuff, or they're fixing to come condemn my land. All those myths are out there. People don't know that it's not true. And then we also actually put the sections of the Code of Alabama in the book so that people can read what it actually says. We provided information in the different chapters so that if somebody finds a point, that they can learn the terminology to identify that point and actually take that terminology and come put it over here into this monster right here to try to find a type name for that point. And so whenever they find a type name, they can actually go find a page and find that point type to see if what they've got looked like that, and is that the same thing. Did the same thing with stone. Because again, until you get into this, you don't realize how important lithic materials are in telling part of the story of everything that goes on. And so we put this whole chapter in here on lithics information. We give several examples of what that lithic material looks like. And then we actually provide artifacts with a page number that you can go and look at what that artifact looks like made out of that lithic material. Pottery, did the same thing with pottery. Pottery is not my strong suit, but we try to give people an example. What are the temper materials? What are the different designs that you can have on pottery? If you can figure out what type of temper material it is, and you can figure out what type of design, you got this chart right here. You can go through and you can look and try to identify the type of pottery that you find. Now, all these artifacts are located in the same chapter from the time frame that they're from. And so if you identify an artifact from the Paleo period, you can come see all the artifacts that are from the Paleo period. You can also read what the Paleo period was like. You can look to see what the environment was like, what people did for survival. Was there conflict during that time period? Were there specific tools that they used during those time periods? What are the evidences we have of travel and trade? What were their lifestyles like? How did they handle death? And also try to educate people on different things. If you don't know, these are actually some images of some pots that were stolen from Alabama. And there actually has only been 3 recovered since this happened in 1980. And I hadn't heard anything about the real strange. Have you heard anything else about those 3 that recovered? They ever figure out anything else? It's really strange. Somebody just popped up a couple of years ago and said, hey, I got these 3 jars. Is there a reward? And but that's all the ones that's been recovered. So you can actually look in the book, and if you see a pot somewhere, you can actually compare it to some of the photos here to try to see maybe if this is a stolen pot. Now, I said the information is shallow, and it is, because there's so much that you can't give out there. But everything is in the book. You can go to these references, and you can see where the information comes from. So if you want to know more about a Clovis point, you can go to these references and find those references, and you can go as far down the rabbit hole as you want to. If you found Stallings punctated pottery, there are references right there that you can chase that down as far as you want to. And again, as I said, you can see that the point types are identified by their not only the county they were found in, but also by the type lithic material that they were made out of. This being a living document, this is one of my favorite things out of the 2nd edition. Steve Carmody, who's at Troy University now, did some botanical analysis on this pipe that was found in the 60s at the Flint Creek site. Whenever he did it, this was all unexpected. This pipe, they found nicotine, and it dates from between 1685 BC and 1530 BC. That's the first ever recorded use of tobacco. And so this wasn't in the 1st edition. This is in the 2nd edition. This is part of this being a living document. Now, the 3rd edition that will be coming out maybe 2025, 2026, I can already tell you right now, some of the dates that we have on the point types in this book are going to change because of some work that's been done at the Dust Cave site in North Alabama and from the Hester site in Mississippi. So some of those time frames of some of those point types are going to tighten up a little bit based on some of that work. But again, you can see there's references to everything. We also tried to put in here, places in Alabama that people can visit if they want to have more of this experience. So these are actual archaeological sites that people can go visit to, I guess, to become more immersed in the archaeological experience. And as far as the references go, let me back up here just a second. You see each one of these references has a number, R18, R19. I did that because this is Artifacts for Dummies. And when I got to looking through some of these papers, Greg Wazelkoff may have written 3 papers in 2003. And all it would have as a reference would say, Wazelkoff, Greg, 2003. Well, which one of those 3 papers did it come from? And so, again, being for dummies, I put that reference number on there so that whenever you go here, you can actually pick out which particular one of those papers that was written that came from. Now, so what does all this mean for us? Well, I'm going to tell you what it means for me. Whenever I found these sites, I was so excited. I love history. We had a front end loader on the tractor. I built a sifter big enough for the bucket on the tractor, and I went to town. I was finding stuff left and right. One of the worst things I did is I actually dug up a feature, and it had fiber tempered pottery in it. Well, fiber tempered pottery is the oldest pottery type in North America. by my doing that, I destroyed the context that existed there. We don't have a date in Alabama on fiber tempered pottery. And so finding that feature, we could have gotten a date on that fiber tempered pottery to add another piece to the puzzle. And so what it means to me is that I learned that. And so I don't go dig on my sites anymore unless we have, we did one about 3 weeks ago, and we actually had 3 professional archaeologists who came there, and we're actually digging units. We've been going to University of West Alabama. We're doing work in the archaeology lab, going through all that stuff that we're finding. Again, trying to put the pieces of the puzzle together. Because what I tell people is just imagine that all of us are trying to put together a 5,000 piece puzzle. All right. I've got 10 pieces. You've got 20. You've got 4. You've got 50. You don't want to share your 50 pieces with everybody else. We've got 1,000 that are laying out here on the ground that we hadn't even picked up yet. We don't have a picture to go by. And so your corner pieces are kind of obvious. Your side pieces are, but filling in that interior of the puzzle, that's what takes so much work. And so if we're not all playing together and working together, and everybody's not bringing their pieces of the puzzle to work with everybody else, you know, we're not getting there. And so we are all responsible. If this information is lost, it will be our faults. And so if the members of the Alabama Archaeological Society had not reached out to me and mentored me and worked with me, the things that we're doing right now, those pieces of the puzzle will be lost. And so I think that's one of the biggest things is, you know, again, I'm picking at Greg, you know, people like him reaching out and working with people like me, not thinking that they're so much better than me, you know, and that I have nothing to contribute. And so any questions, comments? Nobody has anything to throw.
Let me just say, David, I think you're doing a perfect job. You know, we have so few non-professionals who have the energy that you have when you're a great ambassador to bridge the gulf that unfortunately exists between professionals and others. And there are obviously loads to learn. And
Well, and I appreciate that, but again, I would not be doing what I'm doing if it was not for people like yourself and Dr. Carr, Phil, and Stephen, Ashley, Teresa, Bill Turner. Again, all the professionals that were out there that took the time, you know, to talk to me and put up with my 1,000 questions and pictures. And so I will say, and this has just blown me away, we were actually contacted by several people in Mississippi that like the Alabama book so much, they've asked us to do a book for Mississippi. And so we spent a whole week in Mississippi at the Cobb Institute with Tony Boudreau and Derek Anderson, Shane Miller. We've got to go to MDAH here next week, I think, and get some stuff from over there. We've gotten pictures of over about 5,500 lithic artifacts from across the state. And this came from one of the collectors, wasn't my idea. He asked if we could put that like on the internet somewhere for like people to look at, to use for research. And so MDEQ, Mississippi Department of Environmental Quality, is looking at hosting a website where all this stuff will be a repository on there. And Phil is working on this. I've got a group Bill Carr, Stephen Meredith, Sam Brooks, John Conaway, Jay Johnson, Tony Boudreau, Derek Anderson, Shane Miller, Daniel Adu, that are actually these artifacts that I've taken the images of. I asked the collectors to identify them for me. Well, I'm not a Mississippi expert. I'm not an Alabama expert, but I know a bunch of this stuff is mistyped. And so all these images are like on Dropbox right now. And the people I mentioned are actually working through those to make sure they're typed correctly. So that whenever we put whatever we put in the book, that it will be a good representation, you know, of the artifact types. Ashley Dumas, Tony Boudreau, Jay Johnson, John Conaway, trying to remember who else are working on the pottery images the same way. I was hoping Erin was going to be here tonight because Phil threw her under the bus and told me to get with her. So I can't say enough. It's got my name on it. It's a collaborative effort. I don't want to take credit for any of it because none of it would have happened without everybody else, you know, working together. And what we're doing with the Alabama book, talking with MAA, the Mississippi Archaeological Association, they're setting something up that's going to be similar to what we've got set up with AAS. And so they will be selling the book. And then the proceeds they get from the book, they'll be able to use for the same thing like we're doing here in Alabama.
You mentioned the misconception from landowners about the others working on the properties and versus the state laws.
Well, I'm gonna get my dad to come up here because he was one of them. If the archaeologists come on your land or if something's found on your land, the state's not coming to condemn it. They're not coming to take it. They're not going to come destroy whatever there is on your property. If you go in the Code of Alabama, it's very explicit and it says without the consent of the landowner, subject to the permission of the landowner. I mean, the property owner's rights are set at the highest level in the Code of Alabama. And so these thoughts that, you know, people have about, well, somebody sees my stuff, they're coming to take it all, or it's just not, that's not the way it is.
You have to tell the property owner that you found?
Yes. Well, this is me. Before you go on the property, you have to get permission from the property owner.
Well, this was land I leased, and the landowner never seen the property. He inherited it. It was a store somewhere, but he had cut some timber, and so we took the opportunity to plant some patches. And I was running a chisel plow, and the whole ground was covered with pottery, busted up, that I tore up, and I found so many different types of.
I'm going to give you, this is my advice. This is not legal. I would be a good neighbor and I would tell them that that's there. They may not be interested. They may not care that you have found that. They may appreciate the fact that you have told them that, because what a lot of people don't understand is you have a monetary value to your land, like there are monetary values to artifacts. That provides a historic value to that person's property.
They have trouble selling it. It's been for sale for years. And if you go on the web, on all the pictures of it, you'll see a big stump with a pile of broken pottery. I put that pottery there, and it's on the web right now. They took a picture of that stump, all that pottery.
Yeah, I would be a good neighbor and share that with them. Because one thing, we just started a local chapter in Monroe County. In our first meeting, we had Jan Jameson from the Office of Archaeological Research, which is through the University of Alabama at Mountville. And they handle the state site file. Are y'all familiar with what the state site file is? The state site file, if there are any archaeological sites found in the state, they are put into the state site file. Now, how many of y'all know that everything that the government does is public information? The state site file is actually restricted by law. So you can feel comfortable if that site is recorded, which it should be, that some pot hunter, some meth head it's not going to be able to go and look that information up. Jan actually told us that there are only 19 people in Alabama that actually have access to the state site file, because you have to be a Department of Interior certified archaeologist to actually get access to the file. And so our group, what we're going to do, if you look at some images that and some of these people can pull from the state site file, if you go up around the Tennessee River Valley, it's covered with spots. You get down here around Mobile, it's covered with spots. You get up around Monroe County, it looks like nobody was ever there. Well, I'm going to tell you, on the first pieces of property that we have, we've identified 21 sites. My wife and I just bought another 110 acres. We found our 7th site a couple of weeks ago. The problem is archaeologists are doing archaeology where developments happen, because that's the only place they get paid to do it. And so our local group is working to work with these private landowners that aren't familiar with all this, that we know that there's sites there that people with a hunt lease or whatever. And this summer, we're actually going to go around and we're going to try to document those sites, because there are only 154 sites in total in Monroe County right now. And that's not just prehistoric. That's covering prehistoric and historic. You get down here in Mobile and there are several thousand. Well, there were that many people there in Monroe County. So I ramble around to say all this. I would let the property owner know, be a good neighbor. Because again, that's part of putting that piece of the puzzle together, because there's no telling what piece of the puzzle may be found there.
So the Archaeological Society was doing a dig on a piece of that property the first year we leased it. That's probably 17, 18 years ago. Or something.
Yeah, we actually sponsored a lot of excavations across the state before COVID hit. And then we've had a hard time recovering from COVID. And so I think the one that we did on our property a few weeks ago is the first one that we've done since COVID. And so we're trying to get that set back up again, where members of the public can come participate.
You know, the thing after finding them, I'm always watching the ground. Everywhere I've hunted since then, I've been finding stuff you wouldn't normally ever even look at.
Listen, I hunted on this property for 20 years and never found a thing. And whenever I picked up that grindstone and I actually saw all the stuff under my feet, I can't tell you how many food plots we planted that I planted for 20 years, that all of a sudden I started finding stuff I had never seen.
Now, where you plow, when you take good rain, come back, plow again, come back.
Yeah, my dad likes that because I get the ground plowed up real good, you know. But then I overplow whenever he's getting ready to plant.
You know, I've been trying to find information about all that stuff I found for 10 years now. One of them is 3 points. 3 points on, I still ain't seen nothing about that.
Well, I know our local group, and I don't know how it does down here. Our local group, we're trying to encourage people, if you find something, bring it, show it to everybody. And there, we may not be able to identify it, but there's a network that I'm exposed to, that I'm hoping to get the rest of the group exposed to, that they know Greg Wazelkovs and Phil Cars and Stephen Merritt, that's in Ashley Dummies's. Again, to get this information to the people that can put these pieces together. And so if you found something like that, I would encourage you to bring it, you know, let somebody here see it. And you got 3 sitting right here, I know.
I got stuff laying all over the place now. I forget where I got it from.
Well, and I would encourage you, and I was very lucky because I got put on this path to start with. Go ahead and start documenting, because if you're forgetting now, one day we're all guaranteed to die. And whenever you're gone, whoever that goes to, if they don't know where it came from, if they can't figure out your system, then that information will be lost forever. So I can't encourage you enough about that, because just what I did with the little bit that I've done, I'm not a professional archaeologist, but working with archaeologists, I can start to see patterns. And I know Aaron talked about the last meeting, about how they were seeing how people were moving from different areas. We see that on our place. We see everything from paleo to late woodland. We don't find anything Mississippi. And in talking with people, we feel like that's what it is. Our terrain is really hilly. It wasn't conducive to farming. So what did they do? They moved off. We don't find any shell tempered pottery. Again, all those pieces matter. And I'll ramble all night now. So
I was gonna say, a lot of people have another misconception, often repeated in popular shows about archaeology. They have a misconception that archaeologists, we want to withhold the truth and we're hiding the information. And that's not true. Normally, you need to shut up.
well, and I'll say this, another myth you hear from people, especially collectors, is, well, archaeologists and museums get it and they hide it. You won't ever see it again. Well, I learned in going through this process, and I was able to go to a lot of places where they curate these artifacts. There are regulations, there are guidelines that have to be maintained to maintain that status as a curation facility. And there is so much that they have that it takes up so much room. You can't display it all. And then if anybody's familiar with NAGPRA, the Native American Graves Protection Restoration Act, if you have something that may have something to do with human remains, there's all kinds of other stuff that goes into how this stuff is being able to be shared with the public. It's archaeologists for the most part. Now, you got some bone-headed, knuckle-headed collectors. I've met some bone-headed, knuckle-headed archaeologists too, just a few of them. So don't lump everybody in with the bad apples. But there have been 1 out of 100 that I have met that didn't want to work with me, knowing that I was not a professional. The support and, the mentoring and encouragement I got has been exceptional. Just don't put them in a place where you asking them to violate their ethics, or, again, don't be one of these unethical collectors that you went out there and you dug up a grave and you walk up to an archaeologist and say, hey, tell me something about this skull I found right here. That's a no-no in and of itself. But then you're putting that person in, they're having to violate their ethical guidelines as long as legal guidelines. You're endangering their job. Any other questions, comments? Everybody ready for me to be quiet? Thank you.